time to officially kick off the spring 2016 program for the Academy of Lifelong Learning. So welcome to all of you. I see some new faces, so I'd like to know how many people are new to A.L.L, meaning you've just gotten involved in the last couple of years. Yeah, that's what I thought. I love it. I love it. I also see some people that have been around a while. How many of you have been with A.L.L since the beginning? This is the 19th year. Yeah. Look at this, still around the ticket. Isn't that good? And we got a whole bunch of people in the middle. How about from 5 to 10 years? Good smattering of all groups, so that's really wonderful. I thank you for coming today and participating. Special thanks to the instructors who are here giving up their time. And going to give, if it's your first time, I want you to know they're going to get just 3 minutes to give you a quick synopsis or highlights of their courses. We're also going to highlight, and yeah, hold it up, Dale. This is what, yeah. Here, do this. Where's the next slide? Oh, there it is. Nope, it's not moving. I was going to say, this is what ex-chairs of the board get to do. So I look forward to taking over your spot someday, getting promoted. Want to give a big thanks to the 2 committees who produce the program. Our curriculum committee has put together 127 hours of classroom hours for you to learn new things, whether it's in a subject you know quite a bit about or whether it's something totally new to you. It doesn't matter. I'm sure there's something being offered for the longtime members of A.L.L. as well as all of the newcomers. Also, the Excursion Committee has put together an outstanding excursion program. We have a 4-day trip to Southeast Washington. We're going to hear more about that. And 3 one-day excursions in the local area. So I know you'll find some of those that will appeal to you. 2 additions we have this time. I want to mention that thanks to a great supporter of lifelong learning, Village Books is offering a $25 gift certificate. I think everyone got a little coupon. Yeah, what is it? Raffle ticket. Thank you. Get up here, you can't think. A raffle ticket, and at the end of the program, we will have a drawing for that $25 certificate. The other thing I'd like to mention is, in partnership with Western's Retirement Association, we are offering you the opportunity to go on a MIR, M-I-R, it's a Seattle-based travel company. They've been doing trips, especially in Asia and Russia, for the last 30 years. The Retirement Association is offering a 10-day, it's from September 29 to October 10th, and it's a trip to Moscow, Petersburg, and Kaliningrad, specializing in museums and musicals enhancement or experiences. So we have flyers for this at the front table. So take one home if there's going to be some interest. We'll also list it in our newsletter. Other than that, I'm going to turn it over to Allison here, who's going to give us a little administrative information, and then we'll move on to the program discussions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Glad to have you back, this wonderful semi-annual event. I'm certainly pleased to be here, even after an incredible and almost frightening dream last night. But who doesn't experience those every now and then when you're up in front of a crowd of 200 or so? Actually, I think we probably have about 180 here today, so thank you for joining us. Nuts and bolts, quickly a little bit about ourselves. If you've been here before for our preview, you have seen much of this before. This is our extended education crew. We help work with and contract with the Academy for Lifelong Learning to help run all the administrative components of your programs. You call us when you want to register or when you have problems registering, which hopefully isn't all that often, but I wouldn't be surprised. And that actually leads me to an interesting announcement. Something that will be coming down the pipeline for you is that we are looking forward to a new registration system that we will be bringing on board in the fall. And that will have lots of beneficial, I'd say, ways to manage your own account and actively participate in managing your enrollment in classes and make things a little more streamlined. So for those of you that have struggled many times with our current registration system, we apologize for that, and we look forward to rolling out the new one for you and hopefully streamlining a lot of that. Related to the registration system is our website, and it gets revamps every now and then, not too many adjustments, so this should look familiar to you if you go on the web, and you can always register right here online, the top right, second to right button. You can also subscribe to our newsletter in that way. You can do it here or over here, and I'll touch on that in a minute. In terms of registration today or any other time, so you can register online anytime. Registration is open right now. So for any of you that may have brought your iPad or a tablet, you can do that. I don't know if any of you are adventurous enough yet to do that, but you could if you had Wi-Fi. And or you can get registered here in person. Our staff will be here. There's a table in the back. They'll be here ready to go at 2 o'clock. So for anybody that needs to leave early, you can scoot over there and take care of your registration if you prefer that in person. You can also do it by mail, though we usually, at this point in time, especially with technology, we try to discourage this just because of the time factor, the lag time in getting your registration mailed in. And of course, there's a few things that are already filling up very quickly, as David Tucker will tell us later, like the Southeastern Washington excursion. So just bear that in mind if you're mailing in. Sometimes it behooves you to give us a call first and just make sure that what you're looking to register for isn't already full. We have a monthly newsletter. We have about 750 of you that are joined on our mailing list. You can just give us your email. You can email it to us. Or as I showed you on the previous slide, where you can subscribe to A.L.L., you just enter your information in a simple form, and we'll add you to our email list. The newsletter is a really nice way to find out more about what's going on each month, other interesting activities that might be happening up at the university, for which you can apply your discounts that you have eligible to you as a member of A.L.L. And that's the sign-up form there. Looking at the catalog now, for those of you that brought yours and got yours in the mail, thank you, or if you needed to grab one up front. Page 4 is the sort of the key things that you might be looking for, the where, the when, the why. Page 19, all the locations that will be featured or will be hosting our classes this term. The Gateway Center here at the cruise terminal. We will be back at Garden Street for a couple sessions this coming term, and then we have a couple up on campus. And then page 20, especially for some of you that are very new, frequently asked questions, so take a gander at that at your convenience. And of course, you can always send us an email or give us a call if you have additional questions. Oh, and one other thing, the page 4, the at a glance, we tried to bring that in about a year ago, and that is a really kind of nice way by day of the week for you to see what classes are available. Maybe certain days of the week work better for you than others. And so our hope is that that is just one more convenient way for you to evaluate what classes you might like to take. Half your membership is available right now, $30. That'll get you January through June. And if you have a reserve balance, you can talk to the gals that come out here for registration. They can help you apply that if you want to use that to purchase a membership today or later on. And you get some nice discounts on courses and excursions. You get invited as a member to our annual meeting, which is in April or May of each year. We'll do it in May this year as a teaser. And then also you get some wonderful privileges, student rates at some of the Western-related events up at the Performing Arts Center, several other things that I usually try to feature in the newsletter so that you're apprised of some of that. If you're also affiliated with Western in any way, you might also get the Western Today newsletter. It's an email newsletter, and those kinds of events are often listed there as well. Oh, and the final wonderful discount is at Village Books. They have a 1 for 20 deal, 20% off, I think, on your birthday, and then something else related to free coffee, I think, on your birthday, and another related piece to that, of course, is the raffle that we'll be doing at the end of the event today. So big thank you to Village Books for their willingness to offer us a $25 gift card today. Facebook, if any of you are Facebooking these days, we're not on Twitter yet, I'm not doing Twitter. But Facebook is a really easy way for us to also help get the word about what we're doing. That's a complement to the e-newsletter. And so if you're on Facebook, you might see that. We're using that a little bit for some advertising. It seems to be working pretty well. And so like our page, I'll post events and information up there every now and then, certain announcements, but you can also always find that on the front page of the web. Many of you who have taken any fall classes, fall programs, if you ever part of the Lincoln Creek Park and Ride, which is Western's sort of external parking facility over on Lincoln Street across from Salish Way. If you ever take the bus up to campus, specifically for those classes that we do have on campus where parking is a big challenge, poor Western has made parking more of a challenge. And I apologize, as I always do on behalf of Western for the parking situation. I even asked them this time around about a parking building, and they said it would be way too expensive and they need some gracious alumni donor. Wink, wink. So, there's some information on our website. You can always call us. The staff that answer the A.L.L. phone line, as well as myself, are happy to help you get a Lincoln Creek parking pass if you need one. Again, this is only if you park there and ride the bus up to campus. If you decide to go up to campus and pay to park up there, like on a Saturday, you don't need this. And likewise for excursions, we have 4 excursions this coming term. Only one of them falls during the work week, in which case you would need this pass. You don't need it on a Saturday or a Sunday. And so we will be emailing all the participants that are in the Bellevue Garden excursion the parking pass for that, so you don't need to worry about that. Another handy way to evaluate what classes work best with your schedule, this is online. It's called the event calendar, and it's literally just a visual layout calendar view of all the programs and the classes that we have planned for the remaining term. And now, if I could get everybody to give a big round of applause, please, for all of our wonderful volunteers, curriculum committee members, excursion committee members, board members, student forum, thank you very much. These are much appreciated, and of course, everything that our volunteers do goes much farther than just an appreciation and a hand clap. And with that said, I would like to now invite our wonderful Carol Pemberton to come up and just say a few words about the curriculum committee.
Thank you. They are hard on me. I am glad to see so many people here. I was afraid it was going to be raining today, but it held off. I have to thank you very much. Last time I asked for some volunteers, and some of you great people stepped up, and I now actually have enough people on the committee that it's not such a struggle as it had been the previous year and a half. However, things change a lot. And we really, if you have any interest at all, and I know there are 2 of you that do have an interest at least, I'd really like to have you contact me and we'll go through the process. It takes a while to get up to speed in the curriculum committee, and you don't have to worry. We give you leads and we give you people's names that do those leads. So if you would like to consider the committee, what we're asking is that you come to a meeting. We have 6 real meetings a year, or a term, and you can get a good feel for what it's like to be on a committee like this. Do you like the variety of classes which we created this time? Well, then you have the curriculum committee, thank you, to thank for that. We try to get a wide variety of classes.
Okay, I'm Monica Ackerman, and I'm with the curriculum committee, and I don't want to take anything away. I mean, I'm with the excursion committee. That was a good start, and I don't want to take anything away from the curriculum committee, but we also would like to have some volunteers for next year. There will be some spaces on the excursion committee. And if you like going places, and if you like planning to go places, and if you like input as to the places we're going to go to next year, then please consider joining the excursion committee. We have several members who are not here because they're away on a vacation or something. But I would like to introduce two of our members who are here, Katie Bigney and our chairperson, Yvonne Dean, are over there. Okay, and I'm going to tell you about the 3 one-day excursions we have this year. The first one is Teatro Zinzani, which is in Seattle. When we made the schedule, we did not know what their program would be because it changes from month to month. But the program we're going to see is called Be Italian. And it's about an Italian family in New Jersey who want to revamp their restaurant. And all kinds of crazy things happen. The Italian menu is good too. There's a choice of salmon or steak, and there is a tiramisu for dessert and some other Italian things that I won't go into right now because I can't remember what they are. But anyway, it's on a Sunday, and it's kind of like Cirque du Soleil if you've ever been there. You go down, you have a 4-course meal, and the entertainment is all around you. They have a website, www.zinzani.com, if you want to see what they're all about. They're also on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter if you're into those things. And that is coming up March 6th, Sunday, March 6th, so keep that date in mind and sign up soon. And the next one is Sunday, April 10th. That's a trip down to the opera. Norma is the opera this time, and it's a very good opera. It's about a Druid priestess who has a clandestine affair, and it's very sad. But it was Norma's favorite role, so you might enjoy that. And it's in the theater down there, and it's a very nice theater. If you went with us to Tantalino, you'll know what that's all about. The third one I want to talk about is Tuesday, June 14th. Now, in your bulletin, it says that you don't need a parking pass for that week because there is no working week that week. So you might not need a parking pass on that day. Alice, you can probably check that, right? Okay. So those are our 3 daytime excursions. I hope you can all sign up. You can sign up for our committee, and I'm going to turn it over now to David Tucker to tell you about the really exciting one in May. Thank you.
Thank you. First, I want to thank the Excursion Committee for allowing me to put this together and giving me the green light to do this. And secondly, I want to thank Yvonne Dean, the chairman of the Excursion Committee, for keeping me focused and to the details of this thing. Okay, so this is a 4-day trip, and the catalog description is very good. And if you have any other questions, call me, call Yvonne, and we can answer those. Some pictures here. We'll do a jet boat tour up the river all the way to a little pioneer town called, I'm having a senior moment here, Kirkwood. They actually have a post office up there, and then we'll turn around there. We'll have lunch there, turn around and come back. So we'll be on boat and with stops maybe 6 hours. And so the picture on the right is where we get on the boat in Clarkston, right behind the hotel that we'll be staying at. And I think we'll be taking 2 boats because we're already at 32 people. And the picture on the left is Palouse Falls State Park, and we'll stop there on the last day coming back. By the way, this is a 4-day. The description in the catalog did not emphasize the 4th day. I've had a couple of people call me about that. And so day 3, we're on the river. Day 4, we're on our way back. Okay, and so day 1, we will lunch in Ellensburg, and then we'll make it to Tri-Cities, and we decided on a stop at the WSU St. Michel Wine Research Facility, the only one of its kind in the United States, and that's where they make all kinds of new varieties of wines. It's a very interesting place. On the way down at the bottom one here on the left is on our way along the Waluki Slope. We'll stop, the one in the middle, the bottom one with the wind turbines. We'll stop at a little town called Pomeroy, and there we can see wind turbines plus other historical aspects of that area. Dayton, Pomeroy, Prescott. I know those communities probably don't mean anything to you or much, but there's just a lot of history there, because Dayton was the end of the line when the area started to become settled. That was the last community, so people made their way to there and then took wagons right over the hills. So, and in the last picture, the rolling hills of the Palouse, we'll get a good look at that. So there's a theme in the entire trip. We're trying to emphasize the pioneer history and the Native American history of Hell's Canyon, and it's very, very interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David, Monica, and Carol. And so now we're going to kick off the introduction of all of our spring courses. And all of our instructors that are here today are going to share on their own behalf a little bit more detail, so you have a nice sampling of what they're like as an instructor in their presentation style, and maybe a little bit extra about what they plan to share with you in their class. Normally our wonderful curriculum chair, who just graciously got up, will do this, but as you may have noticed, Carol's beside herself right now. So I have graciously offered to do the introductions for her. So, to kick us off will be Mr. Andrew Miller, the 6 plays of Euripides. And I want to highlight this excellent picture here that is a wonderful depiction of the character that is Andrew Miller. He is a wonderful instructor. Oh yes, that's right. Oh, you said you were going to be here for a couple of the picture. So I did this just a couple of weeks ago, and I think he actually was here last week during his 6 plays of Sophocles class. And he's so vibrant and exciting, and if any of you have ever been in one of his classes, you know this, and it fills up quickly. So I'll hand it off to him to really share with you what Andrew's all about.
Yes, I did just finish 6 weeks on Sophocles yesterday, and last spring I did 6 weeks on Aeschylus. So this seems an appropriate moment perhaps to review the body count. I'll tell you a casualty list. We've had one of the young girls ritually slaughtered by her father. We've had a husband murdered by his wife. We've had a mother murdered by her son twice. That is, same mother, same son, but 2 different plays. We've had a man who killed his father and married and had children by his mother. We've had 3 suicides by sword, 2 by hangings. I haven't done all the statistics. 1 self-blinding, and a narrowly averted mass abduction and rape of 50 young women by their 50 male cousins. If that all sounds fun, you can join in on the next round of mayhem by signing up for 6 plays by Euripides. Euripides was the youngest of the 3 great writers of tragedy in the 5th century BC. He was, during his own lifetime, less successful than his rivals, in at least to the extent that he won many fewer prizes at the annual dramatic festivals. But he sort of had a posthumous revenge because he was much more popular in subsequent centuries, and almost 20 of his plays have survived, whereas only 7 of Sophocles and Aeschylus each have survived. Among the plays that we're going to be reading is the Medea, which is probably the best known and most frequently performed in modern times, about a woman whose husband abandons her for a younger woman, and she takes terrible revenge, part of which involves murdering her own and his children. We're going to be reading the earliest of the surviving plays of Euripides, Alcestis, which is about a man who asks his wife to die for him. And when she does, he then has to learn the emotional cost of accepting such a sacrifice as that. We're going to read the Hippolytus, which is one of the few plays that did win a prize for Euripides. This is about a woman who, against all her instincts and her moral standards, falls in love with her stepson. We're going to read the Bacchae, which is a play about a king who tries to stamp out the worship of the god Dionysus, which turns out to be an unwise kind of thing to do. In any case, and there will be a fatal chariot accident and more hanging, suicide by hanging, and so on and so forth. So come join the fun. Sign up for it at Euripides. Thank you.
Clearly, you can see what all this excitement is about. Thank you, Andrew. Okay, next up is Bellingham to give us a whole different picture of the world and a little more current than historical.
Thank you, Alison. It's different, but it's some similarities. There are a lot of murders and deaths. Not as many as Andrew's. Well, now, as you all know, China is rapidly rising as a world economic and political power, and the U.S. and China are already confronting one another as rivals. And I'm just so afraid it shudders to think that inevitably, that someday in the near future, this rivalry will become acute and may even be ugly. Well, to prepare ourselves, I think we should all, I'm not saying that we should take up arms, but we should all learn something more about China. Its history, its culture, its philosophy, its arts, its aesthetics, its value system. Now, of course, you can learn these things by just paying attention to news stories in the mainstream media. But I often feel that these stories are somewhat biased. And then you can also read scholarly research books. Boring, who wants to do that? You can also go travel to China as a tourist, and that doesn't hurt, that helps. In fact, whether the impressions are usually very superficial, what's the best way to learn about China? See Chinese operas. And it's the way that Chinese, for centuries, the ordinary Chinese people do. They all love Chinese operas and learn about their own history, about their culture, about their arts through watching Chinese operas, not by news media or not by reading scholarly works. So that's the best way to learn about China. Probably many of you know something about Chinese opera. It is the amalgamation of all the arts, the literary arts, the music, the dance, the martial arts, slapsticks, and costumes, colors. But for this purpose, it's most important that it's about its history, its culture. Each opera tells a story, and the story usually is about one of the 5 cardinal Confucian relationships. And what are these 5? It's to one's emperor or superior, to one's parents, to one's spouse, to one's... wait, is that 30 seconds? All right, so you learn about all these things, and it's fun because you can watch a lot of performances. So, you sign up. Thank you.
nutshell. Our next instructor, Miss Becky Pillai, has been working on her authenticity for this excellent class. Becky, why don't you come tell us a little bit more about what you've been up to?
Certainly not in mixed company. India, incredible, incomparable. India confronts the outside observer with a whole matrix of totally different culture and belief. She presents an almost incomprehensible variety and diversity. India is the collision of opposites, the ancient with the modern, the astonishing beauty with the unrelenting ugliness, golden wealth with abject deprivation, the inspiring with the dispiriting. In each of the classes that I have offered on India for A.L.L., there's always been a particular focus. And this time around, the spotlight is going to be on the three arenas of Indian culture that are the source of questions that I have been asked for many years. So the three themes are the caste system, women's role and status, and the nature of Hinduism. What I'm going to aim for in this class is to try to unpack the complexities and contradictions inherent in these and how they play out in the life of the individual and writ large in the nation as a whole. As we examine the material, you may be surprised to discover that some of these complexities and contradictions have parallel or echo in contemporary issues in the United States. Each of the sessions, you will be shown a 15 to 20 minute sequence of documentary that I've selected that will help illustrate the theme of that day's session. So if you have interest in a culture that is at the antiphonal extreme of the comfortably familiar, India will not disappoint. Because India is the live wire of the 12th and the 21st century meeting and crackling. So if you are interested in that, please join me in this room on March 3rd for the first session. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you, Becky. And Becky didn't mention this, but she just got back from India. So all of her wonderful experiences from a long time of travels, as well as very, very fresh ones as well. Well, let's bring it back to a literary theme. We're going to introduce Miss Sylvia Willis to come up and share us a little bit about Henry David Thoreau.
Good afternoon. Many of us have been introduced to Henry David Thoreau through his book Walden and through quotes such as, "If a man does not keep pace with his companions, perhaps it is because he hears a different drummer. Let him step to the music which he hears, however measured or far away." And if you have built castles in the air, your work need not be lost. That is where they should be. Now put the foundations under them. And famous people from all walks of life have been influenced by Thoreau, including Robert Frost, Mahatma Gandhi, Frank Lloyd Wright, John F. Kennedy, and Martin Luther King. Even the British Labour Party in the early 20th century were interested in Thoreau's social views. But many myths surround Thoreau, and most of us know very little about the man. We have a class coming up that I will give a little plug to here on Hawthorne, and I'm going to quote from him now. In 1842, Nathaniel Hawthorne, living in Concord, wrote, "Mr. Thoreau dined with us yesterday. He is a singular character, a young man with much of wild original nature still remaining in him, and so far as he is sophisticated, it is in a way and method of his own. He is as ugly as sin, long-nosed, queer-mouthed, and with uncouth and somewhat rustic, although courteous manners. But his ugliness is of an honest and agreeable fashion, and becomes him much better than beauty." Would it be nice if they said that about us? 10 years later, his son Julian encountered Thoreau. Once, when I was nearly 7 years old, Thoreau came to the wayside to make a survey of our land. I watched the short, dark, unbeautiful man with interest, and followed him about all over the place, never losing sight of a movement, and never asking a question or uttering a word. When we got back, Thoreau remarked to my father, "Good boy, sharp eyes and no tongue." On that basis, I was admitted to his friendship, which began in 1852 and was to last until his death in 1862. Ralph Waldo Emerson's son Edward sought to correct myths surrounding his friend Thoreau. The indictments, he says, are numerous. When a school teacher, he once flogged several pupils at school without just cause. He carried a tree through the town while the folks came home from a meeting. He, while living at Walden, actually often went out to tea and carried pies home from his mother's larder. He let others pay his taxes. He was lazy. He was selfish. He did not make money as he might have done by attending to his business. He did not believe in government and was unpatriotic. What then was Thoreau? The man of whom I speak was the friend of my childhood and early youth, and living and dead has helped me in no common way. His name and fame and lesson have become part of America's property and are not merely the inheritance of the children who draw by the mosquito quit. I invite you to join me in this class and learn more about Thoreau.
Thank you, Sylvia. Our next instructor will help you determine whether or not you're ready to dump Trump and fill the bird. Mishu. Come on up.
Hello. We have finally had a caucus and a primary. We are meeting on the last Wednesday of every month and capturing the results of all the primaries. We've spent time talking about ground game, retail politics. So now we're counting delegates. And so I thought I'd bring a couple of numbers. As we move into South Carolina, the following candidates have committed these amounts of money to ad buys. Bush, $10.3 million. Rubio, $9.4 million. Cruz, $5.7 million. Trump, $1 million. Bush has now spent $76.7 million to get his 4 delegates. It's an expensive game. We're going to follow all of these delegates. As you know, in the New Hampshire primary, Clinton was crushed, but we have to remember that it's a delegate game. And in the state of New Hampshire, even though she lost by thousands of votes, both she has 15 delegates and Sanders has 15 delegates. So we'll keep track of all of this. We'll pay attention to who's voting. The young are voting, the females are voting, the uneducated are voting for Sanders. We'll see whether that pattern continues. I learned a new term the other day. I understand that there's a whole group of voters called millennial feminists. I had no idea. So join our class. We're having, I have to brag a little bit. Our class is a wonderful class. Very engaged. They ask thought-provoking questions. They interact with each other. It's a wonderful learning It's lots of fun.
Thank you, Mishu. Our next instructor is Dick Whitmore. Dick, I invite you to the stage to tell us a little bit more about the history of the timber industry in our state and our country. No, just some of us Washington.
Thank you. There's a lot of misnomers about the timber industry and its importance to the Northwest. As I look out this beautiful window here, 100 years ago, this state would look a lot different. It would look more like an industrialized city from back east. So things have changed quite a bit. What we're going to do is we're going to start about 1848. That was a time when Western expansion started and started blowing the doors off the West with the pioneers. And that's about the start of the timber industry in Western Washington. And we'll go about how that happened, where it happened, and the technology it took to make it happen. Of course, then what they look for is water for transportation and water for power. That'll be the first session. And the second session, we'll go into the technology. That's when the steam engine came out. And that changed things greatly. What is really, I think, pretty interesting and exciting about this area is many of the technological changes in machinery came from Northwest Washington. Some of them right out of Deming and different areas like that. And so that's pretty exciting, and we'll follow that through. One of the things that I feel is very interesting is the lifestyles back then and what a person lived through in those days. We go outside on a little hour or two hike in a little mist, and we're ready to come in and get next to the fireplace, where these people, families, and everyone lived outside through the winter and very hard times, and it was very difficult. And I think we really have to honor these people and what they did for this area. The other thing is the industry didn't happen just in a vacuum and all of a sudden started up. There was an expansion in the United States, an expansion of the Pacific Rim. And in that expansion, you need to build buildings. And where did the timber come from but the Great Northwest? And we'll go into that. And there wasn't much else you could get out of here at that time simply because the forests were everywhere. You know, you couldn't really farm here at that time because there wasn't any land to farm. So that came after, actually, the beginning of the timber industry. The technology part is in the 1900s, and that's a very interesting time. It's interesting to me because I'm a forest engineer, and it's kind of like the railroad logging and what they went through to build those type of structures. And the last part we get into was the part that I lived through for the 4 years of my career, and that's the timber wars and how we diminished the timber industry in the Northwest and all over. And we'll talk about that and get into the social economics and politics of that, and hopefully have some lively discussions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dick. And now, Stony Bird, I invite you to come up and share a little bit about capitalism with us.
I do confess, I used to be a capitalist. I worked for big companies as a corporate lawyer for many years. I stopped doing that in 1990, and I've had a lot of time to reflect since then. And I'm pretty sure you can recognize what's going on in the picture there. There's some guys dressed up as Native Americans tossing crates of tea into Boston Harbor. The tea belonged to the British East India Company, which had friends in Parliament and had gotten an exemption from the excise tax on tea. So the people throwing the tea into the harbor were trying to restore the balance, because they didn't get the exemption. And the story of how capitalism and capitalist companies have been helped by government through their entire history continues to our present time. So that's what we're going to talk about. My friend David Moss, who I've been co-teaching with several classes with A.L.L, couldn't be here today. He had that awful thing, a doctor's appointment that he had to go to. But he will be part of the teaching team. He will present some case studies about particular ways in which the political, economic, legal structure under which we all operate have been skewed against ordinary people, particularly related to retirement and healthcare and some other subjects. Anyway, when we talked to class in the past, people have thought it was pretty interesting and engaged, and there was conversation among everybody in the class. And so I invite you to really see beyond the headlines what is affecting our lives and the lives of everybody in the world and all the people yet to come, including our own children and grandchildren.
Thank you, Sony. Well, we've touched on capitalism and we've touched on politics and lots of big, lofty ideas. And now we're going to get down to earth and talk a little bit about microbes, the small things that make a big impact. Great.
Thank you. Let's see. There we go. Yeah, what I am proposing to do, and I'd like to point out I'm a rookie at this, so bear with me. But what I'm proposing to do is share some of the experiences that I've had over the years in my career. I've been fortunate enough to get out and do some explorations around the planet in the deep ocean and learned a few things about how microorganisms have transformed our planet. And really what I'd like to go through is walk us through a history of how microorganisms have made this planet more habitable for us. And so that's basically our topic. One of the first things that I'd like to touch on is origins of life. So one of the topics we'll take a look at is what some of the current views are on origins of life and how we now think that they might have started at, the first life might have started at hydrothermal vents. One of the other topics, just as that I wanted to highlight, is also how photosynthesis basically made this planet habitable for us and other multicellular organisms to live on, and how the events leading up to that came to pass, and what some of the geochemical evidence is. I'm not going to get too technical, so I don't want to scare anybody off, but we are going to basically walk through the history and through what the evidence tells us what the history has been over these earliest time periods during the planet's development. I really love the banded iron formation because it really represents the oxygen wars, and you know it's the triumph and the tragedy, maybe not of individuals, but of millions of organisms coming into existence and going extinct. And we'll take a look at sort of a who's who list of what happened during those times and what the evidence is and what was recorded from those wars. And then, of course, we'll have to talk about how multicellular organisms exploded on the scene once there was enough oxygen in the atmosphere, for example. And we'll take a look at how that happened, basically how all the different diversity occurred in the intertidal. If you go to the tide pools, you get to see a lot of what happened during this diversity explosion event. And finally, we'll take a look at a lot of the different extinction events over time, and and then which organisms took advantage after those extinction events, who blossomed You know, we often talk about the downside, but we're also going to take a look at what was possible after those extinction events as well. So if you're interested in how the planet formed from a microbiological perspective, join me on Friday afternoons in April, and we'll take a journey together and take a look at some of these experiences. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. And thank you, Dale, for waking us all back up. Okay, our next wonderful instructor is not here today. We have 4 instructors that could not be here today, and they all have good excuses. 3 of them are doing what they do best. They're teaching up on campus right now. And our 4th, David Drummond, is, of course, sailing somewhere around the world near New Zealand. So he sent us a little blurb, and I'm going to read that on his behalf. So excuse me for a moment while I don't look at you and I look at my paper, because I'm not David. So I'm not quite sure what he was going to say, except I will read it now. So we're sorry to say that he's off teaching others about nature, but here's a little bit about his class. Have you ever had visitors stay with you from another part of the country or world? Of course you have, and they always want to go walking on the beach, right? You can tell them about which seaweeds are edible and which are not. You can turn over a rock and show them all the critters that live under it, letting them know which not to touch because it can sting, and which they can carefully hold. Then, of course, you can tell them to carefully replace the rock the way it was so none of the critters die. You can show them that some of the life there can live out of the water for a short time as the tide goes out, and some must stay in the water. You remind your grandson about the banana slug he saw in your backyard and show him the cousin to that slug, and on and on. Won't that be fun? Oops. Why the oops, I don't know. I forgot. One more thing it must be. You didn't take David's course on Salish Sea Intertidal Life. Well, you can always walk along the beach, and if you take this class, you'll be a little more educated and can tell your grandson a little bit more about what all of these organisms can do. Okay, so thank you for bearing with me on that. This is David, all the information there. Many of you have taken this class, and so we look forward to you signing up again, and any of you that haven't. He's very vibrant and educational, and I wish he was here today to share a little bit about himself as well. Next up is Nicholas Margaritas, another one of our instructors that was not able to be here today, but his wonderful colleague Adam Moles has offered to share in his stead.
Well, I got really lucky this year to be able to talk Nick Margaritas to walk through something he does for the university every summer. He speaks fluently in almost every Romance language, and he takes his students over to places like Greece and Italy, and in this case Italy, and has managed to get into all those little churches along the way, the ones your tour bus never would go to, and to have his students embrace each of the frescoes on their way, of course, to the big one in the Sistine Chapel. But he actually asks them to read all the backstories. So instead of just, oh, isn't that pretty, look at the brushwork, he gets into what saint's life, what little biblical story, and how the artist changed it, so that when they actually look at the fresco, the whole thing comes to life for them. And he's willing then to take that experience and in a series of slides and talks. But this guy is not a presenter. He gets in the dialogue with his classes, and he's one of the most popular instructors in the English department. So I recommend his course highly. I've loved the things I've sat in on for it. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Adam. Sticking with the Italian theme, something else we know Italy very well for, is wine. Oops, wrong direction. Not David. I don't think David's there. Doug Charles, please come grace us with your presence and tell us a little bit about the wine industry.
Well, thank you. There are a lot of serious topics up here today. All we're going to do is sit around and drink. So I've been in the food and beverage industry since high school. many years ago. So it's a very, very serious part of my life. I mean, my son is a food anthropologist on a Fulbright studying food and beverage in Turkey right now. So it's a very important, very serious part of my life, but I'm a firm believer that oftentimes people take wine way too seriously. It's rotten produce. And so what we're going to do in our class is I'm going to kind of demystify it. It can be very intimidating, it can be very scary, it can be very snobby, and I'm kind of the anti-wine snob, and if any of you have ever seen any of the seminars I've done for the state and things like that, I tone it way down. And so what we do is we're going to talk about a little bit about the culture, the history, the background of wines, where they come from, how they fit into life and here versus the old world versus the ancient world. We're going to taste wines from those various regions and talk about, you know, why certain things grow in different places and why they work and why they don't, and why things maybe work in Washington and they don't work in California and Oregon, etc. So there's going to be a lot of background information about agriculture. You know, I've been doing this for 40 years. We're going to condense it in 12 hours, and so it's going to be kind of quick and dirty, but it's going to be a lot of discussion about why wines taste the way they do. Maybe you like them, maybe you don't, what you do with them, and a lot of what we're going to be doing is talking about how you can then apply that knowledge to pairing with food. And so we're going to finish up the course at the end by actually doing food and wine pairing. I mean, people bring foods and wines, and we'll have a lot of lively discussion about how to make your wine a better part of your meal, and make it a lot less scary than a lot of people. A lot of people take it so seriously that they stress out about it, and they think they're supposed to do certain things, and it just comes down to it's just supposed to be fun. I mean, that's what it was designed for. And so it's going to be real fun, lively discussion, wine tasting, talking about wine, talking about food, talking about travel, history, and then we're going to finish up by putting all of that together and just eating and drinking. So I hope you attend. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. That sounds like a very tasty class. All right. Next up is a very well-known A.L.L. instructor and also very well-known university instructor, Miss Laura Lafredo.
I would like to complain about having to follow the booze guy. We're going to talk. And also, to go sideways into Hawthorne, I would like to add on the news about that Henry David Thoreau class. When after Hawthorne met Thoreau for the first time, he wrote in his journal, "One would just as soon think of shaking hands with a tree than shaking hands with Mr. Thoreau." And then after another meeting later, he wrote again in his journal, "He is exactly the kind of man who makes one feel guilty for owning 2 coats." I was inspired by hearing more about Thoreau. So Nathaniel Hawthorne, as probably everybody knows, Nathaniel Hawthorne is considered to be one of the greatest, if not the greatest American writer. Because of that, high school students suffer very regularly, probably even as we speak, by having the Scarlet Letter assigned to them. It is a 19th century book set in the 17th century. It's about adultery. They're high school students. What do they care? Right? They end up just hating the book. When Herman Melville read the Scarlet Letter for the first time, he thought it was the greatest book that was ever written. And it makes me think a lot about how you can, hi Sharon, it makes me think a lot about how you can have the exact same book with people responding so differently. The last time I thought about this, I thought, you know what, you simply have to be a little bit older to really get what Hawthorne has going on. And so we will talk about Hawthorne's life, we will talk about all his works. As much as he's well known for the Scarlet Letter, he wrote some very well-received children's books. He wrote a campaign biography of his college friend Franklin Pierce, who became president of the United States. He was one of the worst presidents of the United States that we have ever had, and that is saying something, right? You know, Franklin Pierce is always in the top 3. He wrote a series of essays after he lived in England on a government appointment for a while. So we'll talk about Hawthorne's life. We'll talk about all his works. We'll talk about why people still read him. After all, this was some guy in the 19th century who, you know, in a lot of ways
was kind of full of himself, and unlike Henry David Thoreau, he was extremely good-looking. Decades after his death, when D.H. Lawrence wrote about Hawthorne, he called him pretty blue-eyed Nathaniel. So in any case, we'll talk about all that. We'll talk about how he fits in, and I want to make it clear, even though there will be some dead bodies, all right? I'm no slouch when it comes to that in Hawthorne. Hawthorne is kind of, when you read him, you'll recognize his humor, and you'll also recognize his real sense of hope. And we don't see that all too often. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Laura. Our next instructor is here to tell us a little bit about the one of two inevitable things in life, and I'm not talking about taxes. Brian, please come up.
Thanks a lot.
And in a good light, I'd like to say, I think there's lots of good things to be learned about this subject, and we all need to know, no matter what age we are.
I sure hope so, and I promise this is not going to be heavy. What we're looking at here is an image from a green burial grave site in a natural burial ground. It looks and feels very, very different than what we come to expect. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I want to back up a little bit. Actually, I want to back way up. My friends, we are stardust. And I don't mean that as a statement of spiritual nature, but rather a statement of hard scientific fact. The elements that make up our body were forged in the furnace of the stars and have gone through countless changes as they have reorganized and regrouped time and time again throughout the eons as they went through the cosmic and natural cycles until we had the good fortune of borrowing them for a few years as we walked on this earth. And then when we're done with this body, it is intended to continue with those cycles. Everything that is alive today is here because something has died and nourishes it. However, contemporary funeral practices alter these cycles dramatically, and not for the better. When we engage in traditional burial, which often involves in pumping a body full of chemicals for preservation purposes, and then sealing it up in steel, and then sealing that up in reinforced concrete. We've arrested that natural cycle. When we incinerate a body so that there's nothing left but a pile of ash with a high sodium content and high acidic that plants can't even grow in, we've arrested that process. But green burial is designed to allow our body to return into that natural cycle unhindered and make way for new life. We can literally become trees. We can literally become plants. And we've designed it to do this. And it also comes at a point in our culture where funeral practices come with either heavy prescribed rituals and ceremonies that for a lot of us don't carry a lot of meaning anymore. We've had that meaning co-opted, wrapped in cellophane, and sold back to us at high prices. And so the reaction to that is absolutely nothing. Here's your loved one in a cardboard box with no ceremony, no ritual, nothing to help us negotiate grief and healing and to make sense out of this momentous change that is left. Green burial provides that template, and it comes in a fascinating time in our culture where it can be used as a vehicle for ecological restoration, landscape level conservation, and making new, meaningful, relevant rituals to help us negotiate changing times. We'll be exploring all of this, as well as the history of funeral service in our culture, and some other contemporary movements in alternative death care, such as the home funeral movement, and, believe it or not, human composting. So I hope that you will join me on May 10th. I would be thrilled to see you there. Thank you.
I'm sold. Thank you, Brian, very much. That was very educational in even just 3 minutes. So taking from this column to the next, a little bit about physics, keeping in the realm of all things that are earth and natural and physical. No.
Thank you. Can you hear me? I didn't think about this before, but my course will be sort of a synthesis of a couple of the courses we've already heard about. I'm going to start with talking about the Greeks, but not necessarily like Greek murders, but maybe some of the Greeks I'm talking about will have been murdered or poisoned or whatever. And also, our last speaker just talked about how we are made up of things that came through the universe to the earth. And I'm going to finish up talking about the universe and all that. The task will be to get from the Greeks to there in 4 hours. That's going to be a good trick. But I'll start with the Greeks and then move on through a couple of Italians. I'll talk about Copernicus, and we'll go to Newton. And of course, that's when physics really got its start, wasn't it? That was Newtonian physics pretty much ruled for a couple of hundred years before some of the more modern topics came along, like relativity and quantum mechanics and that sort of thing. So we'll touch on those as best we can in the time we've got. I will draw a couple or 3 graphs. I'll even put some equations on the board, not very many, not too complicated, I hope. But I hope people might have heard of F equals ma that started Newtonian physics, and we'll elaborate on that a little bit, and maybe generalize that, well, specialize it actually, to gravity, because we do have to understand gravity, the situation that we're going to talk about in physics. I'll talk about the consequences of that for waves and what's called harmonic motion, which is a generalization of waves and pendulums and what have you. And I'll talk about electrical phenomena. I hope by the time we're finished you understand what volts are, amps are, and watts are, which might help you as time goes on to understand your electric bill. And I will talk about elementary particles, certainly in the second part of class, the second day, which a lot of the work I did on elementary particles in the late 60s, I guess, was totally obsolete shortly before I came to Western. So I've had to learn a fair bit more. I'm a nuclear physicist by training, but there will be no instructions on how to build a nuclear weapon in class.
Ooh, how does that happen? We checked this thing many times. Okay. The book is the book should be right. So does it say 10 to noon in there? Yeah. I had a couple people helping me too. But I take the ownership. Apologies for that. 10 to noon. 10 to noon. Physics for anybody. Hopefully it has that right in the calendar too. Okay, the next one is Kay Zabaslak. She is up on campus today and was not able to make it, so I've got a little something I'll read on her behalf as well. She says, J.S. Bach left us with 2 types of keyboard music. Works for organ and works for the clavier. Clavier. How do you say that? Clavier. Thank you. The word clavier is a general term that designates any stringed keyboard instrument. In this course, the focus will be placed on Bach's works for clavier, which are pieces that pianists of our time play. Participants will learn about Bach's life, composition style, the background of each genre, the inspiration behind his works, and some tips to enjoying his music even more by understanding unique characteristics. The course will include demonstrations and live performances by the instructor. Her objectives: gain an understanding of the compositional technique and style of music by J.S. Bach from the Baroque period. Introduce the background of each genre, such as suites, preludes, and fugues? Fugues. Thank you. You guys are so helpful. All right. Well, you see, you're all part of this too. This is not just me. Many people included. Okay, so fugues with unique characteristics. Did I say it wrong again? Yeah. Fugues! I'm getting fumed by fugues. Okay. Introduce the background of each genre, such as suites, preludes, and fugues, with with unique characteristics of each genre highlighted by live demonstration on the piano by the instructor. Present some tips on what to listen for to enjoy Bach's music further. And lastly, practice applying these tips through listening to recordings and live performances. So that's Kay, and that's her class in a nutshell. Again, she apologizes that she couldn't be here today, and I thank all of you for teaching me a new word. All right, the next one, Mr. Ron Miller. Teach us a little bit about some classic film stars.
It's almost like karaoke. Would you like to do strangers in the night? Most of you probably think that's a picture of Cary Grant up there. If he were standing here next to me, he would say, Ron, straighten him out, you know. That's not Cary Grant, that's me, Archie Leach. If you ever had a conversation with Cary Grant, you would learn that Cary Grant was a character he made up because he got a screen test. He was a nice-looking man, and he said, well, as many people have said, I've always wanted to be Cary Grant. Well, he always wanted to be Cary Grant. And he actually made up the character, and it was his greatest performance, played it all his life. And that's one of the stories. I should tell you another thing, too. Someone sent him a message once saying, how old Cary Grant? And he sent back a message, old Cary Grant doing fine. How old are you? Anyway, that's what you have when you have a conversation with someone like Cary Grant, who didn't do very many interviews and very many conversations. But they're included in a new book called Conversations with Classic Film Stars, which I have written with my lifelong friend Jim Bodden, the former Toronto Star television columnist. And that book will come out in April from University of Kentucky Press in both hard copy and ebook versions. But what I've done is I've taken a date on May 21st. We're going to 2 hours. I'm going to give you the very best stories that the actors who had our conversations with us told us, and then show you film clips of them and many of the things that they talk about in the book. So I think it's going to be a fascinating time, and some of the people, we've gone back to the silent era. We had Gloria Swanson and Jackie Coogan, the first great child star. Besides Cary Grant, other stars, Douglas Fairbanks Jr., Glenn Ford. Among the actresses, Irene Dunn, Joan Fontaine, Dorothy Lamour, Dorothy McGuire, Maureen O'Hara, Louise Reiner, the first double Oscar winner, Rosalind Russell, Jane Wyman, Loretta Young, and that lady who spent so much time in the paw of a giant gorilla, Fay Wray. We have three of the greatest bad girls in Hollywood history, Jane Greer, Audrey Totter, and Marie Windsor. We have the two great singing cowboys, Gene Autry and Roy Rogers. So we hope that you'll come to this and see this. I must tell you, the book says that Jim Bodden is going to be there with me. He's recovering from heart surgery and he will not be able to be there. But I was the editor on the book for both of us and prepared the manuscript for the publishers. So I know his interviews as intimately as he knows mine. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron. And now, our next instructor, who you heard from just briefly, is going to get back up and actually speak on his own behalf. Adam, tell us a little bit about the Middle Ages.
Actually, I got into this whole thing because I'm a marine biologist. And I was sitting around in grad school and realized all the chicks were over in the English department. So I started taking the classes in the Middle Ages. It's just become one of my hobbies. And what I've noticed a lot of is, imagine 1,000 years from now, the only images that anyone has to figure out what life was like in the 21st century was the royal wedding, with all those huge fascinators on their heads, all the guys in military sashes, and all the portraits were of members of Congress in their black suits with the red ties. And having gotten deeper and deeper into the Middle Ages, I found there's been a whole lot of misunderstandings. And why don't we go to the next one? Because everyone thinks castles, cottages, cathedrals, and we'll get into things like clothing, literature, medicine, the Black Plague, one of my personal favorites, and how feasts were held, and how often the lady of the manor was actually pregnant during her life, and how did you go to the bathroom, all the way to how elegant was it walking around with some sort of a headdress that was bigger than you. And we'll just try to have some real fun with this. I've worked up this series of slideshows for medieval recreation groups, and thought I would share it with you.
Thank you very much, Adam. Okay, our next instructor also is up on campus teaching today, and she could not be here, so I have a short blurb to share on her behalf as well. This is for Kristen Larson, Life Cycle of Stars. Understanding the dust and the interstellar medium, the stuff between the stars and our home galaxy, the Milky Way, is key to understanding how stars form and what happens when stars die. This class will illustrate some of the properties of interstellar dust and how local dust changes our view of the distant future. Progress on current research to map the location of dust clouds in our own Milky Way galaxy will be presented. Come with questions, curiosity, and wonder for our place in the universe. So a little more than a decade ago, Washington had been largely without gray wolves, wolverines, and fishers for almost a century, and the outlook for grizzly bears and lynx was bleak. Today, all are moving towards recovery. This course will discuss the status of each, the reasons for its turnaround, conservation, and social challenges associated with their recovery, and what this all means for our region. And Mitch Friedman, he's a trained biologist with a degree from UW, University of Washington, and he, as I mentioned, is the Executive Director at Conservation Northwest. So, look at that! Oh my gosh, I was so excited with you! Have at it!
I have to stand out in the rain all the time. 10 years ago, there were no wolves or fishers or wolverines in the state of Washington, and there hadn't been since our great-grandparents' time. Today, they're all back. We're used to thinking of everything that's going wrong in the natural world. Well, here in the Northwest, some things are going right. And I want to tell you the story of why that's happening and how we can keep it happening. I look forward to seeing you all soon. Good